Hi ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 6th of January 2018. Happy New Year. And it is quite exciting, isn't it really? We've come into this new year and most of us are still here. I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy storms, crazy snow, crazy. What I'm of a mind is a distinct evidence of a pole shift. So we saw in kind of the middle of August, early around about the 9th of September as well, we saw massive displacement of ocean from the Atlantic, and which suddenly seemed to arrive around about the same time on the Pacific coast. Do you remember? I think it was in Brazil and that sort of stuff. I'll leave some links as I'm talking here. With various different bits, because there's so much that's been happening. But but that, and then I think we saw it again around about the 9th of September in I guess it was Miami. Storm Irma. Do you remember when Storm Irma came in and they said it blew the sea away? I mean, and people are supposed to believe that a storm can just blow the sea away. I mean, I can understand you can get a tidal kind of like a tidal surge, but when the sea just disappears for 3 days and it's just still, you've got to start thinking there's something amiss there, surely. You have to start sort of thinking, well, what the hell's going on there? And now we've seen, I'm not too sure where it is. I think it's Brazil again. I'll put the link. But the same thing happened again. The ocean's gone out. It's just disappeared. It's gone out a long way. It's not. It's more high tide than it is low tide, because it's still pretty. The moon's pretty full, and the sea's gone right out. The sea's just disappeared. And at the same time, you've got this massive, great surge of water coming up in I guess it's Boston, up on the north coast of America, on the east coast. And I'm of a mind that happens because as we move away now from Planet X, the axis will return to where it sits naturally, without the influence of another body, of another big, i.e. Planet X, in what I'm assuming is the southern aspect of our solar system, in the southern hemisphere of our solar system, and moving ever downwards. But all of this, you have to understand all of this, all throughout this. I always maintain this in all these videos. I have these timelines, but truly I absolutely don't know. And all we're ever trying to do is, do we have the right to try and calculate what's going on here? You have to understand. I'm not a scientist, and I'm not definitely. I wouldn't call myself an astronomer, even though I've had to look at so much astronomical data whilst making these Planet X videos, because it's entering into the total taboo when you go into this. Because number one, you're looking at something other than climate change that's causing all of these problems, and we got to climate change because there was obviously the global warming camp, and Al Gore and all the rest of it, and of course he's being scorned at the moment because of all the snow, isn't he? It's clearly, we've got massive cooling effectively going on. But we also have to understand that all of this, you can have global cooling, but that doesn't necessarily give you snow. It's global warming global cooling is actually a cold front, a super cold front, but that doesn't necessarily mean snow. Because to get snow you need moisture. So you need, you have a cold front and a warm front that comes together, but you need the moisture there. Now, to get the moisture there, you also need the heat. And we're getting vast quantities of moisture coming up off the Pacific. And so this is where the global warming and the global cooling camps kind of collided, and you had this massive debate that went on when global warming came out. People were saying, well, the evidence is that the Earth is getting cooler. And where one camp was saying it's going to be the end of snow forever, the other camp was saying, oh no, we've got more snow coming than you'll ever believe. But of course, all this while the oceans, especially specifically the Pacific Ocean, is boiling during a grand solar minimum. And so climate change was born from the division of two camps diametrically opposed. One saying global warming, the other saying global cooling. Neither could agree because the data was so confusing, because we were in a grand solar minimum but the Pacific was boiling. Well, it wasn't really boiling then. Its temperature has just been steadily rising, and it's gone up more than a degree in 100 years, whilst, you know, atmospheric temperature hasn't risen more than a degree since we've been having records began, you know, and we're seeing this massive rise in the oceans, and we get extreme rises in certain areas. Especially, you remember the area they called the Blob in the Pacific, which is right above the Emperor Hawaiian seamount chain. And seamounts are underwater volcanoes, and they are erupting just as much. You think as after we had the shift in the axis of what I'm assuming is the shift in the axis of the Earth, from it started shifting in like I say, August, September, which is when we saw the big tidal shifts, and that's when the Earth kind of buckles a little bit as it starts shifting. It moves a little bit, and everything has to kind of shift around, and you get everything thrown in a bit of a different way before it kind of gets its axis is steadied again. And I'm assuming that kind of buckling of as it kind of wobbles into its new kind of like axis position as we approached Planet X. And it pushed the southern aspect of our axis, which was already experiencing itself in a winter kind of like dynamic, because the northern axis was already experiencing itself in a winter dynamic, and so it pushed the axis. You know, it basically amplified what was happening there, and it pushed the northern axis further away from the sun, and we experienced what we've experienced. But whilst that was going on, as we went over it, you can imagine its effects on our oceans are very, you know, that's a fluid mass. And the magma in our Earth is also like liquid. It's magma. It's a liquefied kind of like granite, rock, all of this sort of stuff is magma. Or basalt specifically, which is not actually granite. It's actually a denser form of magma than granite, liquefied molten granite. But it behaves a little bit like water, I suspect, and it is affected by gravity. And as we've gone over this system, you've seen every major volcano, you know, have been going off. And they're kind of our valves. They are the release valves that enable kind of large pressure of the magma within our Earth to release itself, so it can keep a balance. Else you're just going to get everything, all the plates just rapidly shifting, massive earthquakes and volcanoes happening simultaneously. And one thing we didn't get, and you know, I was imagining that we were going to get a massive solar flare when we went into that kind of alignment point with Planet X that I was suspecting was going to occur. And this is all by calculations of what's happened in previous movements. And many of you have worked with me on these calculations. We don't know. We're just trying to make sense of it because it might not be climate change that's occurring. I mean, clearly there's climate change occurring. Clearly there's something massive happening. But when I say climate change, I'm saying it might not all be man-made, what's happening. Don't get me wrong, I see the situation that's going on. And before I drift off onto the climate change, let me just stick with the Planet X thing a little bit more, and just conclude there, because I don't know if this is truly our passage past this whole system is done yet. I really don't. Becky Lewis has made a few interesting videos just lately, and I've really peed Becky off it recently, and not communicating with her enough. And a million apologies to you there, Becky, and a million apologies to so many people out there that write to me and that sort of stuff, and I don't get back to it, because I tell you, I read some of the comments on YouTube and that sort of stuff, and honestly, you can imagine I put so much pressure on me when I do all of this, and every time I say I'll do it, I'll never do it again. And I've got to be honest with you, I never will put a timeline out. I don't mind going through and trying to make some sense of general kind of like schemes of this, but I won't put a timeline on this, because I just don't understand it. That's the truth. I just don't understand it. And I'm trying to make sense of it and putting timelines on it and saying that this is the point when we saw it last year, this is, we've seen some basic characteristics and that sort of stuff. But, Becky made a video recently. She's taken it down actually, but and I wasn't at all offended, because I've got to say that anyone who makes a video about when they've got an opinion, even if you're shouting at someone, she didn't say anything really rotten about me or anything else like that. It was just Dave doesn't communicate enough. Dave's having too much to do with WSO, which is a Christian channel, and and that sort of stuff. And I've discovered my connection with what I would call, I guess, my God. I'd give it no name as such. I really don't make any affiliation with any religion, even though I'm kind of like a paid up minister of the Church of the Subgenius. I do that obviously as a bit of a piss take as well, and that's why my channel is called Subgenius TV. It's because you can never take yourself too seriously, and I don't really want to get affiliated with. I don't really, who am I to say who my God is? My God. Everyone reaches their God through their own special way, through their own special journey. And who am I to throw my God and throw my definition of God and say that is the one God? I would never do that. And I think this is the big mistake Christianity and so many religions make. And that's the beauty of India, is that even Buddha exists in India, and no doubt Jesus can openly exist in India. Well, he does. He exists in Goa. So that you have all the gods in India effectively. You have Muslims, you have everything. That's the wonderful, 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 wonderful thing about India, is that no one is fighting over whose God is the one God. There's just many gods, and you communicate and reach a God in many different ways. But anyway, Becky made this video, and I'd made a comment on Planet X Hunter's channel, because he'd caught something around about the 21st, 22nd, and I'd made a comment saying it's very similar to Becky's friend Paula Gilly. She'd posted a video around about December the 22nd of a similar object, and I'd remarked how similar it was, and she was livid with the comment.
Well, folks, it is what it is, and I'm not going to try to put anything else with that, because I've been taking some stuff to skies for a long time, and I'm telling you what, you can't explain it. There's no way you can explain it, and I'm trying to get over that, because some of the things I've captured I can't explain, and most of the stuff I capture I can't explain. So, we just need to get over it and just start putting out the stuff. I've talked to friends online, and I've talked to several people, and they just say, you just got to put out what you capture, because the camera don't lie.
Saying that it was clear the video had been shot through glass, and it was, it wasn't a legitimate video. But I've been following the video maker and Planet X Hunter, and he's really quite an interesting fellow, and he's an English filmmaker. He's not a Christian or anything else like that. Not that that's good or bad or anything else like that, but you can imagine, I'm not for or against those. I have my way of touching my divine space, and anyone who finds their way, whether it's through Christianity, Buddhism, whether it's through Hinduism, whether it's through ayahuasca, whether it's through their writing, whether it's through you know, who am I to say how you can or can't touch your divine inner space? It could be through Taoism, whatever you want to call it, whatever your process is. It could be through kite surfing. It could be through sort of like, you know, people touch divinity in so many different ways. Some people have to do the most unbelievable stuff. My throat's a bit sore, so excuse me while I just have a quick cup of tea. And I've got to say I've been on a fast for the last week, so this is my first cup of tea. So I'm not drinking sugar at the moment. I'm not having any sugar or any kind of sweet things. I've just been fasting everything, and so it's got honey in it, but it's kind of sugar, isn't it? But it's just like, whoa, amazing cup of tea. Oh, spectacular. I might have to have a few more sips of that as we're going through this, but I don't know whether those videos, to me, something passed at that point. You know, we had volcanoes going off at that point as well. When those videos were put, but Planet X Hunter, he's really quite an interesting fella, and he's one of his comments. He said that was just how he said that was how he filmed it, and you know, mate, there are loads of people out there making fake videos and all the rest of it, but there's also, you know, just because a load of people put a load of fake videos up and then say it's all fake because I make fake videos and so it was all fake. There's a lot of people reposting a lot of old Nibiru stuff as new and trying to confuse all the old data and really trying to dampen down so we kind of lose this pattern that we were seeing. And that's what I've really tried to keep together, desperately trying to hold together, is what I find is authentic data and keeping this original pattern of data so we can see if there's, you know, because if we can't find the patterns, then we're not going to be able to work this thing out. And something out there, or someone out there, people out there desperately don't want us to work this out for some reason. And so I've really tried to keep this out there. And so, you know, there's that, and there's Jeff P recently put a shot up of something where he says, you know, he offers evidence of what looks like a sun simulator and shows this thing, these white light, these lights coming out from it, and suggesting that this could be a sun simulator weaponized. The only problem I have with that, you know, and, you know, I'm totally of a mind, you know, the recent shot I saw, I think yesterday, of what looks like, you know, we see this kind of like the sun, you know, when you get the black dot in front of the sun, and someone caught two black dots in front, you know, and said, what the hell, how does this work? Even if this thing did fly by and it blocked out our sun, it seems there's something up there, there's some kind of instrument up there which is definitely creating an alternative form of light. It's like a plasma. But we have got evidence of something big up there also, which we've seen at various times over the last kind of 10 years. And various images of it, fantastic images of it. And, you know, to me it's just too massive. You're looking at something, when we see the ISS, which, you know, the International Space Station, which Jeff P now calls the International Sun Simulator, which I think is fantastic, and it's great humour. But when you see the ISS at night, and you see it, I don't know if you've ever seen it go by, and it reflects the light of the sun, and it appears like a little tiny star. Now, when you think the sun, and this isn't a criticism against Jeff P, because Jeff P, I totally understand where Jeff P is coming from here, because Jeff P is trying to make sense of it. And guys, I know it's another one of my long videos, but I want to bring you to one thing here, one last thing here, and that is if I can remember even how to say the word, they're called Zoroastrian. And they were the wise men, the three wise men that came to Jesus supposedly at the time of his birth, following a star. Now then the nearest things I can relate in terms of a religious kind of order to the path of what led, where Mesopotamia actually, the religions, the kind of orders that came from Mesopotamia, of that great that great kind of like civilization. There's another word I'm looking for there as well. Mesopotamia. It will come to me. It will come to me in a second. But you know, the area I'm thinking about is Iraq, Iran, and Syria. You know, and this was the kind of religious order that came after. You know, and we saw, but before kind of like the Muslim faith really started. You know, we're talking pre-Abraham here. We're talking about the kind of the first, you know, the concept of a one God, monoism, monoatheism, no, not monoatheism, I can't remember. I'll put the word up. I'm terrible, aren't I? Absolutely terrible. My kind of ancient history is absolutely just like, it's terrible, you know, to be honest with you. And I'm constantly learning so much all the time. As it's a great thing about just studying or about Planet X as being this massive kind of looking and learning about so much, you know, about our history. But basically, from a very simple perspective, they were the first initial point of a concept of a single God, and the idea of a single God was not so much of a man or a form, but the single God in itself was pure mind. A pure state of mind. That was the God. It wasn't anything external. You know, it was a pure mind. And the devil. Now, our idea, the Christian idea of the devil is, you know, the old pagan idea of the devil was half man, half human. It was humanity's embodiment with nature, which is where we had Pan. And of course, the Christians took Pan and turned it into the devil, so they could take over this faith and move the faith into this area, especially into sort of the greater Europe, and expand the religion into greater Europe. And so they demonized Pan and turned Pan into the devil. But actually, in Zoroastrianism, the devil, well, it wasn't a devil. There was, I forget the name of it. I'll write it down. I'll put the name of it. But it was angry thoughts. It wasn't a devil. It was like a demon, and demons entered the human state through angry thoughts, anger. And they were of a mind that every now and then there was a grand reckoning where everything was brought back, all of everything that had been expelled. That there was a grand grand correction of everything, where everything that had been pushed out could be brought back in and into the one, and brought back into so everything could be brought back. It was like the end and the beginning of time. And it feels very much like you can see how this isn't an attack against Christianity or anything, but one thing you'll see, and this is no offence against especially the angry comments, but one thing I see is the anger in the comments, and the anger where it comes from. And I don't really know where all these comments come from. I don't know if they're all just trolls or if they're real troubled Christians that are really so savagely devoured by anger that they can judge in the ways they do. And if that's you or whoever, because Becky made a comment recently and said, you know, you've sided up with Christians and that sort of stuff, and I haven't. I said, you know, I've got to tell you, I've really grown to have an enormous love for Steve Olsen. I really do. I've seen the journey he's had to carry in this. You know, he's been attacked by his own as much as any. You know, as I've seen Christians ripping into Steve. You know, and especially for the stuff that I've said, trying to make sense of this timeline. And was I right or was I wrong? Did we even have an eclipse? I honestly don't believe we would have known if we had an eclipse, because we've had so much anomalous behaviour with our sun. What is going on with our sun? What is going on with the kind of shifting of our planet? You know, there's nothing going on that's normal on this planet anymore. abnormality is the normality. We are in strange waters. We are in strange waters. The population of this earth is bigger than it's ever been in our ever known history. You know, there's nothing normal about this earth on any level whatsoever. Everything is abnormal. The whole thing is at a massive, absolute tipping point of utter insanity, whilst literally we see it rocking. We're looking at the evidence of the earth tipping to and fro, and we know we're at a tipping point. Guys, it's all food for thought right now. We're trying to make sense of it. We're trying to make some massive sense of it. But maybe there is some massive reckoning going on now, and we are living right through it. And maybe peace is the only answer.